It's an industry that's revolutionized every area of entertainment, from television to sports to movies. The video game business rakes in more than $20 billion a year, making bigger bucks than even Hollywood.
In the early 2000s, something remarkable happened. The video game industry brought in more revenue than the movie industry. At this time, video games had only been around for a few decades at most, and most media companies still viewed them as a toy to entertain children and computer nerds. Today, the video game industry is worth more than the movie and music industry combined, and the companies that make these games are some of the most valuable businesses in the world. The only thing is, they don't really make video games anymore. Movie studios are pumping out record numbers of big-budget movies, which are being viewed by more people on more platforms, but video game studios are doing the opposite. Rockstar, the creators of the infamous Grand Theft Auto series, used to release a new game every 4 months on average. But as of mid-2022, their latest game is now almost 4 years old, and there is no news of any new releases coming soon. Despite this dry spell, Rockstar's parent company just had its best financial year ever. Why? Well, the reason is simple. Video game companies don't make money producing video games anymore. In fact, game companies will try to do whatever they can to avoid producing new games because their businesses do better the less they make. I think a lot of you are already muttering microtransactions under your breath, but that's only half the story. So it's time to learn how money works to find out why video game publishers stopped publishing video games. This week's lesson was made possible by ClickUp. We all love the feeling of accomplishment. It's especially rewarding when you do something that took a lot of work and effort to make, and an even better feeling when you accomplish something in a very efficient manner, knowing that you're not wasting any extra time. Imagine having one extra day every week, more time to cook healthy meals, work on becoming a better content creator, or just binge watching some good reality TV show. I know if I had an extra day, I would be spending it going to the gym more often, or at least I like to tell myself that. No matter how you'd spend that time, ClickUp is the productivity platform that'll save you 1 day a week on work guaranteed. ClickUp is a work management platform designed to flex your team's unique needs. Whether you're building product roadmaps, launching a marketing campaign, managing engineering sprints, or supporting clients around the globe, ClickUp is fully customizable to help your organization supercharge productivity, alignment, and visibility. To get started, use the link in the description and use code HMW to get 15% off ClickUp's massive unlimited plan for a year, meaning you can start reclaiming your time for under $5 a month. Join the more than 800,000 highly productive teams using ClickUp today. Video games are a major industry, and their development has become a major business endeavor.
As I said, the industry's on fire. More people have recognized the value of games.
Cyberpunk 2077 cost CD Projekt Red $316 million to produce and market. This is more than only a handful of the biggest budget movies ever. It was also a poorly received video game, which tanked the game company's credibility with their audience and their stock price with their investors.
I'm sorry.
Their 2021 annual earnings report showed that they generated gross sales of $207 million from the title. They may go on to sell more copies as time passes, but so far, this game is shaping up to be a staggering loss for the company.
I and the entire leadership team are deeply sorry for this, and this video is me publicly owning up to that.
Now, you might think I'm cherry-picking a famously bad example, but many game publishers have found themselves investing heavily into AAA game titles only for them to fail upon launch. Fallout 76, Battlefield 2042, and Destiny all being big-budget stinkers. AAA games have become incredibly complex to develop. They now require unique, dedicated work of thousands of people. The more moving parts these publishers try to put into their games, the more chances there are for things to go wrong. The original Halo, produced by a team of around 100 people, was quite substantial. Halo Infinite, which was released 2 decades later, had more than 100 voice actors. Video games becoming more expensive to produce is not, by itself, a problem. An industry this big is always going to have room for massive budgets, but if companies are going to make these investments, they need to be worthwhile.
Shut up and take my money!
Most big budget games, just like most big budget movies, do make money. But despite both being products designed to entertain people, movies and video games are very different. Most people will only ever watch a movie once or twice, whereas video games are designed to be played for hundreds of hours. Video game companies have learned to take advantage of this by selling more and more features to players as they continue to play. These microtransactions, for many titles, have become the primary revenue generator, with actual game sales being a nice little bonus. Some companies have made their games free to play because they know that more online players is more opportunities for them to sell virtual upgrades or cosmetic items on the game's marketplace. Releasing a new version of the game can cannibalize these potential sales as players move over to the new game with the new store. If Rockstar released Grand Theft Auto 6 this year, there is no doubt it would make a ton of money, but it would also reduce revenue coming in from Grand Theft Auto Online, the company's biggest earner. It might still be worth it, but it's a huge risk. The company would need to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to produce a new game and run the risk of it being a buggy mess.
It's the same engine, right, that I worked on when I was there, the core of it. It's the same content. They've really perfected the systems. Again, there's a beautiful machine there that you'd have to try really hard to fuck up.
Not only can game companies lose a source of revenue from an upgrade, they can also annoy the big spenders who would be left with hundreds of dollars worth of virtual items in an outdated video game. Rockstar would have a choice. Do they A, let people have all the stuff they paid for in Grand Theft Auto 5 and Grand Theft Auto 6, or do they B, make people start from scratch? Option A would mean that their new project is going to miss out on a lot of revenue from people who are happy to spend real-life money to have the coolest stuff the game has to offer. Leaving potential revenue on the table is not going to be popular with the investors that need to greenlight such a large project.
Around GTA 6. So the question is there, how do we think about remaster and console cycle potentially impacting the timing of GTA 6? And any interest in giving a year right here?
Right, so Rockstar hasn't announced any new titles for the market.
Option B will make the most financially valuable players angry if the new game doesn't have enough new features. They might not take the leap at all and choose to continue playing the old version with all of their stuff. On the topic of new features, putting them into games has become both easier for small projects and harder for larger ones. We have already seen that massively ambitious games chocked full of features where you can do everything have the potential to be massive embarrassments when even a few of these features don't work. The problem big game companies face is that they can't push these large projects without promising something to differentiate them from the long list of titles that already exists. There was a time when new features could be as simple as updated graphics. Gran Turismo games used to make headlines about what at the time looked like photorealistic graphics. Now, game development tools like Unreal Engine give developers access to high-end graphics right out of the box without the need for teams of developers to build a game from scratch. Not only is it harder for big-budget games to distinguish themselves on features, it's harder for them to justify their need at all.
Who said?
The marketing people.
Marketing? I thought we were supposed to have total creative control.
Welcome to the Matrix.
The original Doom launched in 1993, and quickly became the game people thought of when they thought of a combat video game. Less than 10 years later, in 2001, Halo Combat Evolved arguably stole that title and quickly became the most popular first-person shooter ever up until that point.
Shooter should really enjoy the game, as should anyone. Besides being easily the best game of the Xbox launch, it's one of the best first-person shooters ever on any platform.
It was easy to see why. The technology was vastly different, and the overall immersion and enjoyability of the first Halo game was far greater than that of Doom. Now, 20 years later, people are still playing the first Halo game because it really has everything you could ever want in a shooter. Yes, the graphics are obviously dated, but the difference between Combat Evolved and the latest Halo game are significantly smaller than the differences between Combat Evolved and Doom. For many players, the nostalgia and lower hardware requirements of the older game are actually a draw. Companies are forced to get more and more ambitions in order to justify new games, and while technology can make some things possible that simply weren't 20 years ago, it still depends on an ever larger number of human developers to stuff these features into a game.
Video games have changed the course of human evolution to some degree.
When existing games exist that people are already perfectly happy with, they are also going to be far less accepting of any bugs or mistakes made by any of the thousands of developers now involved in bringing these games to life. Alright, so games have become more expensive and riskier to produce. Technology has hit a plateau where there is less need for new games to keep up, and game companies have found new ways to make money much more predictably. Now, I said at the beginning of this video that microtransactions were only half the story behind why game companies could get away with going so long between new big releases. Yes, it's true. If gamers were not happy to spend hundreds of dollars on a single game over many years, these companies would probably be forced to release more games to keep the money rolling in. In fact, the predatory monetization of video games is something I have already made a separate video on. But there is something else that has arguably been an even better business opportunity for the big players in the video game industry, and this is providing tools to other game developers. There is an old saying that if you want to get rich in a gold rush, you don't dig for gold, you sell the shovels. There are thousands of small game studios all trying to make the next PUBG or Fortnite. Some of them will make millions of dollars, and most of them will make very little money at all. Bigger games with more money behind them do have a better chance of making a return on their investment, but that is still digging for gold in a very crowded and competitive marketplace. Valve was once a very successful game studio. Now, producing games is just a side hustle for them, because they make more money running the Steam marketplace.
Why doesn't Valve make games anymore?
Because they don't have to, they have enough money.
They sure
End of the news.
Epic Games also started off as a video game developer, but they have now branched out into running the Epic Game Store, as well as licensing the tools that they use to make their games to other aspiring developers. Unreal Engine costs $1,500 per developer per year. There are 22,000 self-reported video game businesses operating in America. Even if all of these companies had 5 developers each, that is over 100,000 Unreal Engine customers. Unreal Engine currently has 13% market share, meaning that Epic Games could be making $20 million in licensing fees alone, which is actually not that much really. But Epic Games isn't done there. They actually intentionally make their software cheap to use. In many cases, they make it totally free. Why? Because they also charge a 5% royalty fee on any sales a game makes over $1 million. Just like free-to-play games are designed to bring in big spending players, Unreal's free-to-develop model is designed to bring in big earning titles. That 13% market share could be bringing in as much as $650 million from the American game market alone. Epic is a privately held company, so they do not release their financials, but it is estimated that the company earns more than $1 billion a year worldwide from their game engine alone. Some other companies have taken a less technical approach to generate new income streams. Some of the biggest names in gaming, like EA and Ubisoft, have just acquired dozens of smaller game studios. Not only does this share overhead costs amongst lots of different projects, it also makes for much more predictable revenue.
Go buy your mama a house. Go buy your whole family houses. Put this money in your savings account. Go spend some money for no reason. Come back and ask for more.
Instead of putting all of their eggs in one basket, these companies spread the risk out over dozens of studios and hundreds of different titles. Some of them will do well and some of them will fail, but as long as those winners pay for the losers and then some, the business is sound. Managing lots of smaller developers also means that these big companies get exposure to lots of different areas of the gaming market. There's money to be made in hardcore competitive games, story-driven games, social games, and mobile games, but it's impossible to make a game that makes money from all of these markets at once. Unfortunately, big budget games are going to become less and less common. Video games are a business, and businesses need to go where the money tells them to. Candy Crush is one of the highest grossing games of all time, and it was made on an initial budget of less than $1 million.
Tasty.
For as long as customers are content with the games they currently have, and are willing to spend more money on the titles that came out decades ago, game companies are going to avoid taking risks that could sink their entire business. Now, if you want to find out just how creative these companies have become, and squeezing as much money as possible out of their players, you should go and watch my video on the predatory monetization of video games. A special thanks again to ClickUp for making it possible for everybody to keep on learning how money works.
Are you winning, son? Here are going to be smaller than my own channel, mostly because I just want to highlight channels that might be harder to stumble upon than your Graham Steffens or whatever.